I am doing amazing, man. It's been a while since I've seen you. I tell people you're the Bitcoin John the Baptist. You're the Bitcoin Jeremiah. You know what I'm saying? One guy took Bitcoin Jesus, so he can't do that no more. But you know.
No, I prefer the Bitcoin Walmart greeter. It's got fewer religious overtones, and also it's kind of like nondescript. Like, I'm the guy at the front door going, "Hello, folks. Welcome to Bitcoin. Can I interest you in some holding your own keys on aisle 1?"
Man, I cannot. Okay. See, you've already done it, because this is exactly why I wanted to get on with you and talk with you. Because I remember when I started in Bitcoin, it was really about freedom. Like, literally, I got into Bitcoin because I read the white paper, and the only thing I saw, I didn't see money, I didn't see being able to get a lot more fiat value, I saw freedom. So before we even go into that, right, let's talk about you, Andreas. How did you even find out about Bitcoin? Like, where did it come from for you?
So I remember clearly around the middle of 2012, reading an article, and I think it was on a geek website called Slashdot. It's a geek news website. News for nerds, stuff that matters is what it's called. And they had an article about Bitcoin, and it had a link to the white paper. And I think I had heard of Bitcoin once or twice before, but I'd only heard of it in the context of gambling sites, which were the kind of users in those days. People were using it for various gambling sites. You know, the US had prohibited gambling onshore, so a lot of people were doing that. And I had dismissed it. The first couple of times I heard it in relation to gambling, not that interested. When I read the white paper, though, because of my background in computer science, my interest in the whole cypherpunk movement, cryptography for social change, and all of the things I'd been doing since my teen years, when I read that Bitcoin white paper, it just pressed all of the buttons, and it completely derailed my career. It derailed my life. It derailed everything. It just completely changed my trajectory. And I had a moment. I had a moment that I've had before with technology where I just get completely obsessed and lost in a technology. And Bitcoin did that for me. And the rest is history.
Yeah, it tends to be a drug in that way, man. Like, if you're a person that is into code and economics, which same as me, like, I literally took the hit, and I've been down that rabbit hole for a while, man. So here's the thing. So you got interested into it, and I've had talks with you in the past, and I know you're all about freedom, and I know you're about justice, really. Like, me and you have talked about justice before. So let's fast forward a little bit from there until when I met you at the Texas Bitcoin conference, right? And I remember back then, that conference was kind of like the epitome of what Bitcoin was at the time. The type of people that were at the conference, it was a very eclectic, very diverse group of individuals. Man, talk about those early days of Bitcoin and the types of people that were kind of drawn to Bitcoin at that time, man.
Well, I think the main thing was that at the time, very few people had heard of it, and it wasn't really. Nobody really strongly believed that it was a money-making opportunity yet. And so as a result, it still had a certain naive purity to it, because people were not looking at this technology as a get-rich-quick scheme. And then, you know, it's like the days of the first Tesla sedan. You know, nobody was betting on Elon Musk for their portfolio then. You were one of the weirdos who had one of the weird cars. It wasn't a status symbol. And, you know, quite honestly, the community then was made of a bunch of weirdos who were ideologically inclined to this, either because of an interest in technology, an interest in different types of economics or politics, and it was a very ideological movement. And then after we saw a couple of very strong bull runs, and bankers started getting interested in it, and people started chasing the moonshot, then, like any other thing that goes mainstream, it got diluted. The values got diluted, and And a lot of people nowadays, they come because of the allure of a get-rich-quick scheme. And hopefully, we teach them enough to shift their perspective and understand why this is important for the world, what it means to bank the unbanked, to extend opportunity to billions of people who don't have it, and persuade them to stay for another reason.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is that, and for everyone out there who doesn't know what Bitcoin is, you're at the Black Blockchain Summit. So I've already thought that you've done some study on something blockchain related. So I'm not going to go into that with Andreas, because there are probably 4.5 million videos of Andreas talking about what Bitcoin is. But I just wanted to get his perspective. And also, I was part of that weirdo group, so I really understand what it was, man. Like, I remember going into a bookstore down in Austin, and it was probably the epitome of Bitcoin at the time. It was like people with AKs on in a bookstore watching the video, right, about Bitcoin. And I always thought, like, this is, like, look around, I was like, this is my tribe, you know what I mean? And then I remember when it kind of changed. It went from the Texas Bitcoin Conference, and very quickly it went to Coin Summit. Do you remember Coin Summit?
Yep.
Coin Summit, I couldn't even get in. I didn't have enough money to get in Coin Summit, so I sat out in the line. So what do you think happened? Where did that shift come where the people went from having AKs on and vests and sandals to basically blue and gray suits? Because I remember Coin Summit was just such a different thing, and I kind of felt like everything I read in the white paper was kind of getting shifted a little bit, right? It was like, now all of a sudden people are in it for a different reason than the freedom, than the Porcupine Fest. So when do you think that shift happened, and how do you feel about that shift? Like, honestly, like, how do you feel about that shift?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was never into the whole, guns, red meat, and waving the flag contingent. That wasn't my tribe either. I was much more interested in kind of the elegance of the technology, and it had some important aspects to it. Today they call that social justice warrior, which, I was unapologetically interested in social justice and creating fair structures. So not quite meshing with that crowd, right? So, there's contingents to these political perspectives. There are a lot of right libertarians, and I was more on the civil libertarian side of that equation. But regardless, whether it was exactly the right tribe or not, I can tell you I certainly wasn't on the let's make some bankers even more rich than they already are contingent, which is the one that came about a year later. And I remember going to a conference where I was invited at the very last minute. They put me, and this was a conference in Vegas, and they put me on a panel, the last panel on the last day. And I show up, and the panel has investors, VCs, bankers, and me. And it was 4 suits and me on the end of the table in a leather jacket. I could have put up my feet up on the table just to make a point. And they started on the other end, and they started talking about, how do we bring legitimacy to Bitcoin for institutional investors? And it got to me, and I was like, I reject the very concept that you, of all people, are going to bring legitimacy to Bitcoin. You who raided the treasury, you who set up Ponzi schemes, you who have been defrauding investors for decades, you who work in a system that is corrupt from top to bottom, have the audacity to come and talk about legitimacy. We didn't ask for your approval, we don't need your permission, and we reject the very basis that you can bring legitimacy to a mathematical system of truth. And I almost did a mic drop at that point, but literally, and a small contingent in the back of the room just erupted, right? And the moderator didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to proceed from there, because I just, kind of dropped a bomb in the middle of the whole conversation.
Right. And I think the thing is that like those types of events kept coming.
Yeah,
Right. Because
absolutely.
those
But it's
people,
funny because you can shift the conversation even like that. I mean, three
right,
questions in, people at the end of the table were going, well, we're not talking about legitimacy and doing bunny ears around it. So they no longer had kind of the audacity to continue along that line.
right.
And they had to tone it down a bit. By the end of that panel, they left with literally their tails between their legs. And I realized at that point that we were in for a fight for kind of the soul of this system. Because before long, you're going to have demands for adding banking regulations, saying yes to the regulators, becoming respectable and legitimate, and doing KYC and AML and all of these other things, and basically turning Bitcoin into PayPal. That's basically the battle. The battle was to turn, you know, PayPal started as an ideological system until it got completely defanged. And that's what happens to innovative systems. So I knew right there we were in for a battle. And that's a battle that's still being fought today. Today it's being fought on whether we will have an ETF in order to bring institutional investors. So once they give the approval, we can all get our moonshot. It has nothing to do with what we're doing here.
No. And one thing I always say is Bitcoin already works. Like, I've been in the game for a while. You've been in the game for a while. It works. I can send value from me to you, and I don't know where you are in an undisclosed location. Most people know where I am. I talk about it every time. But I can send value from me to you in the same way that we were able to do back in the day. And so Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Of course, there are always going to be improvements. But here's my question. So one of the things that I like to talk about, as you know, I created the Fever wallet, and shout out to you, man. You did a really dope thing in the Chicago Bitcoin conference by telling people to grab it. And it was like people started, now that you gave it again, because me being a
great
black
wallet.
Yeah, me being a black dude, right? It's like sometimes people look for a person who's not black to give validation. Like real talk, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
I couldn't even get on the bitcoin.org site as a wallet at that time. And yet here you were in Chicago telling people, hey, great wallet for iOS, the only one you can get this wallet, right? And then that's when people were like, oh, Andrea said it, so I guess it's okay. And I still couldn't get on Bitcoin. I still have never gotten my wallet on bitcoin.org, even though at the time it was the only place. So that validation thing, speak to the validation of Wall Street, right? And why Wall Street is so ingrained in us it's almost from a Wall Street, the US dollar is ingrained in us from a psychological level. Talk about that and why it's so difficult to tell people about Bitcoin because they're so indoctrinated. Like, talk about that a little bit, man.
All right, let me give you a parallel, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, Monty Python's The Life of Brian. And it's the story of the Messiah, right? And the Messiah is trying to tell them to think for themselves. And he stands on a high balcony and he's telling his hundreds of followers, okay, I need you to stop following me. We'll stop following you. I need you to think for yourselves. We'll think for ourselves. What should we think? And no matter how hard the Messiah tries, the followers just keep repeating everything the Messiah says and completely miss the whole point, right?
Yep.
And what this speaks to is the fact that as a species, we want leadership. We want authority. We want someone else to make the difficult decision so that we don't have to make it, so that we don't have to take a risk, right? And that's a convenient adaptation for a social species, but it's also dangerous, right? Because what that does is it gives enormous power to the people who can sweet talk a crowd the most. And it's a very dangerous kind of tendency. And yet you see it, you know, for years we've been talking about this and going, hey, people, this is a leaderless movement. You need to think for yourself. Don't take what I'm saying. Here's some resources so you can do some research. Here's a bunch of choices. I'm not endorsing a single thing. And I've been very, very careful not to endorse companies, not to endorse projects, because what happens is that people take that endorsement as a substitute for their own
Research,
decision-making, research, critical thinking, etc.
right.
And that can backfire really, really badly. You know, one day you're on a pedestal and everybody respects you, then you make a mistake because we're humans, right? We make mistakes. And then everybody's like, ah, see, I got burned because Andreas endorsed this project. So I've been very, very careful not to do that. When I talk about projects, I talk about projects that I find interesting and always ones that I have absolutely no financial incentive or even perceived conflict of interest.
Right.
And only because I'm interested in the technology or I'm interested in the project. So when I talked about FIFA wallets, it was because, you know, it was a really easy to use wallet that I had used repeatedly to give people demonstrations. You know, these are the days when I would go to a conference and I would give out 10, 15, 20 Bitcoin.
Me too.
To complete strangers.
Right.
In little bits, like, here, half a Bitcoin, here, try it out. Let's set you up with a wallet. I'll give you half a Bitcoin so you can get started.
Right.
And, you know, it was a matter of, okay, what wallet can I use that works on iOS? And there were no wallets on iOS at the time. So half the people who came to me with iPhones, I couldn't help. What wallet works on iOS, easy to use, non-custodial? And it was FIFA. Really, there was only one choice. So anyhow, I wasn't trying to do anything with that endorsement. I was trying to solve a problem. And the problem was how to introduce people.
You're trying to give people Bitcoin. And the crazy thing is that now I feel like we're in this weird space where we've accepted the validation. And what I mean by that is, I remember the tagline of not your keys, not your Bitcoin, right? That was what everybody was talking about all the time. Oh, I couldn't even see it. Yes,
not your keys, not your coins. I have it in mugs now. It's probably the most successful 6 words I've ever said in my life.
That's the truth. And I think we've all sold out to the Cash Apps, the Robin Hoods, because, and it's not necessarily selling out, it's just that as people got adopted, I mean, as people begin to adopt it, those are the places they can get them quicker. Because it used to be you have to come to a Bitcoin conference and meet somebody like Andreas Salomar who would get you a wallet and then send you some coins, right? It used to be that way. Now people are using links and going to these websites and they're able to get cryptocurrency really fast. But and I want to talk about this.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry one bit, my friend. Those days are going to end, and they're going to end abruptly and with a very, very big bang. You think they're going to let this continue? The reason that the Cash Apps and the Robin Hoods and all of these companies can play with Bitcoin now is because it's not important. It's not systemically threatening to the financial services industry. And because the vast majority of people don't need it in Western developed countries and therefore are not really that big of a threat. But, you know, we're heading into an economic system that increasingly makes this necessary. When you turn a country into a third world country overnight, then you expect the next thing that happens is third world economics. And in third world economics, Bitcoin is useful. So it's getting useful for Americans, not because Bitcoin got better, but because the US dollar is rapidly heading in the wrong direction. So here's the thing. When it gets useful, you think you're going to be able to go on an app and get it? Absolutely not. They're going to shut down every single on-ramp. And as they do so, they're going to demand more and more hoops and more barriers. KYC, AML is nothing, just wait. It's going to get much, much more difficult. And then, of course, what that means is that Bitcoin is going to trend more stealthy, more coin joins, more stealthy addresses, more non-reuse of addresses, more even confidential transactions maybe. And the other privacy coins are also going to grow. And so we're looking at a system that's going to diverge. You will not have legitimate organizations using Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is going to be illegitimate, because legitimacy is only bought by complying with a broken system. And Bitcoin can comply.
Say that one more time. Legitimacy is, say it one more time.
Legitimacy is bought by complying.
Yes.
Right. So eventually, people are going to have to choose. They're going to have to choose between a Bitcoin that works and actually solves a problem, or a Bitcoin that's legitimate and owned by the banks but doesn't actually solve any problems, because if it did, it would be illegal.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
So here's my theory. Here's my theory, right? Because I keep seeing this. Don't you think that the government has realized that Bitcoin is far more trackable if given KYC, AML on every address? It's far more trackable than cash. So they almost might opt us into it just to watch us even more, to survey us. That's my idea, because the more and more you have to, the on and off ramps are way different than they used to be. I remember going to Starbucks and getting my Bitcoin from some dude that had a hoodie on sometimes, you know what I mean? And I would go and sell and give Bitcoin that same way, right? Back in the day. Now,
I don't think that's going to last, though. I mean, I really don't think that's going to last. No, I don't, because push is going to come to shove. There's no way, because of course that kind of Bitcoin can never be legitimate enough. Okay, so you do KYC and AML, but then there's this pesky 21 million upper limit that means they can't inflate it to shit. So how are they going to deal with that? They're going to demand changes to the protocol. And when they demand changes to the protocol, they're going to end up forking it into JP Morgan Chase coin. And at that point, those things will exist. You are going to get weak copies of Bitcoin that are pretending to be the real thing, but that have none of the revolutionary, innovative, disruptive capabilities. But there will still be a coin that does, or several coins. In fact, now it's a whole ecosystem of coins that still have the revolutionary capabilities. I have a slogan I use for this, which is, you've got to think of this as our current economy is a plane, it's on fire, and I've got a parachute. So the main thing I'm caring about right now is, does the ripcord work? Bitcoin is a ripcord blockchain. What do I mean by ripcord? Ripcord, revolutionary, immutable, public, collaborative, open, resistant, and decentralized. That's what a ripcord is. And you'd better have one on your parachute, because if your blockchain isn't revolutionary, immutable, public, collaborative, open, resistant, and decentralized, then what it is a bank coin or a Fed coin or a Facebook coin. And then it's just a mechanism for surveillance.
Right.
And it's pointless. There's no point in doing that. We already have the US dollar just in digital format. We don't need that. The world doesn't need more of that, although a lot of people will buy it. So these things are going to come to a head. This is not going to be a simple, easy transition. The bankers are not going to go, oh, well, I guess we should just reset the system and transfer wealth in the way it's never happened before. And I criticize the people who sell this idea of hyper-Bitcoinization, or a kind of a voluntary transfer of power. Never happened in history, not going to happen now. We're in for a fight, and in that fight, they're going to first call us criminals for using this technology, and then they're going to say that it was Bitcoin that crashed the global economy because it offered an exit. So for the few people who do exit, it's going to get blamed. And I've done a whole talk about this particular thing, which ends to the tune of, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning since the world was turning, which I can't hum with a tune because then we'd get a copyright strike on this video, but you get the point.
No, I get it. I know. I really get it. And I think that what you just said is exactly why I am so, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling weird about Bitcoin in its current state, because it feels like a lot of those of us who were early in the beginning have sold out to the fact that its value is based on this fiat currency that we said had no value in the first place.
But that's because you can, and that's really effectively It's a form of privilege of living in a Western developed country where your currency isn't completely useless, where you can still buy food, shelter, healthcare, and an exit ticket with your currency. When you can't, those kinds of illusions wash away very, very quickly. So to me,
Right.
Bitcoin has always been important because it is the currency of last resort. It is the system that maintains its principles when it is a matter of life and death, when they're trying to actively shut things down, where they're
Right.
trying to prevent you from exiting from the system, because if enough people exit from the system dies. And
Right.
so that's when it becomes useful. Until then, it's a toy. And so, yeah, we're having some fun playing with this toy right now. But to many people around the world, it's not a toy. It was never a toy. You know, I work with people in Venezuela. I work with people in other countries who need this in order to buy medication, in order to buy food. They use Bitcoin as a way to protect their family from disaster, and in many cases, to help their family exit as refugees from these kinds of situations. To me, that's what's important. That's
Right.
where this thing has a unique application that when push comes to shove, other systems won't do. If they can shut it down, if it requires permission, then when push comes to shove, they stop giving permission and they shut it down. So that's when Bitcoin shines. It's when they don't want it to anymore. And right now we're in the honeymoon period. It's a toy. It's making some people money. It's losing other people money. It goes up, it goes down. You know, that's all noise.
Right.
It's not really meaningful. But the thing is, Bitcoin hasn't changed. Its fundamental properties haven't changed one bit.
The same.
It's exactly the same, and it does what it's supposed to do. Just
Right.
because people can't see what it's supposed to do doesn't mean that it's not doing it. And so from that perspective, I'm still optimistic. And I'm also optimistic because beyond Bitcoin, the system, and blockchain technology as a theme, the basic ideas of decentralization, of robust money, of uncensorable systems, of peer-to-peer networking in the form of money and smart contracts and all kinds of other things have now spread beyond Bitcoin. There is now a massive ecosystem of developers who both understand why and can also execute the how to make these systems again and again and again. And if you take one down, another one pops up in its place and
Right.
is more robust and solves the, you know, if you manage to find a bug in one of these systems and you crash it, then the system that pops up in its place has a fix for that one bug. And so once you create that kind of momentum of innovation, this thing is unstoppable. It's no longer a single technology or a single network. It's a movement. It's a technological movement that transforms how we govern ourselves, how we manage money, how we connect as a global society. And I think those are the interesting. So I don't lose hope. I think that there's more innovation, more excitement, more enthusiasm, more participation, more strength now than ever before in our entire industry.
I can agree with that. But at the same time, it's like we don't have enough people educating folks, right? And what I mean by that is that most of the people that are getting in right now, they're hearing about Bitcoin and it's becoming this speculative asset that they can maybe get rich from, and rich in fiat currency. And so
I'm not that worried about it, because nowadays the people who think they can get rich off this stuff are not even looking at Bitcoin.
yeah,
They're
right.
diving straight into they're driving straight into yield farming on yams and Yeefy and Hex and 1,000 other systems, and that's great. You can have them. You know, if anything, the people left who are still interested in Bitcoin are the curmudgeons. You know, it's all of the get off my lawn
like
people.
Myself. Because I just really like even for the Black Blockchain Conference Summit, I want the Black people that are watching this right now to understand this, that what we're talking about is make sure you start understanding the old school, we call them old school, but old school principles of what we used to do back in the day. Make sure you understand how to create wallets or how to own your own keys, and understand the importance of having your own keys. Understand that this is the decentralization is what gives it its power at the end of the day, right? Not having a single point of failure. Like those types of things. Because I was even looking at an article on one of these new DeFi systems that was supposed to be decentralized, and you come to find out it is like the most centralized thing you've ever seen, and there's $100 million worth of value locked up into this centralized thing. And it's like
it's not the most central, but even those DeFi
not
things,
the most centralized, but you know what I'm saying.
I'll tell you, the most centralized thing is run by a dude called Steve Mnuchin, and it's called the US dollar, and it's a Ponzi scheme of monumental proportions that at the drop of a hat can divert $6 or $7 trillion to the military industrial complex and the big banks and all of the big corporations. Boeing gets a bailout. All of these like shitty failed companies, these dinosaurs get bailouts, and then after all that's happened in a weekend, everybody goes, but we can't do unemployment. We don't have any money left.
Right.
That is a centralized system. You can't do, even in the DeFi systems that you're describing, you can't do that. So I think we should maintain a sense of proportion and perspective here. Even the most centralized of the decentralized protocols are still somewhat decentralized. Right. And they're still somewhat robust, and they're still an improvement of what we have before. That doesn't mean they're all good. Many of them are complete garbage. But what we're doing right now is exploring and experimenting in a completely new environment. And
that's the fun part about all of it, right? It's like we're experimenting. It's always an experiment. It always works. Here's my question. Because you've seen it, right? We've been along this journey. I think I got in probably a year after you, like from a timeline standpoint. And we've been along this journey. Shout out to Adam B. Levine, man, not the singer. But
my co-host on Let's Talk Bitcoin, the original Let's Talk Bitcoin show.
The original Let's Talk Bitcoin, my man. And I appreciate him too. But we've been on this journey for a while, and I've just seen it move, but I'm always holding. So people ask me all the time, I'm just like you from the standpoint of I don't recommend or I don't disparage anybody from getting into anything. I just literally just shoot the facts. Here's the technology. This is what it is. You make your own decision. But I've held over the time, right? And I've held on to the coin, and I still have. I guess I just want this freedom so bad. You know what I mean? Like I want people to understand, especially because this is the Black Blockchain Summit. So we have to talk about that, right? From a justice standpoint. Right. We got to talk about the fact that Bitcoin actually allows people who are economically oppressed in this country to actually hold on to something that no one else controls and no one can take from you if you understand how to control your keys. No one can take it from you. They can't keep you from sending the value. Those types of principles are things that I think I am holding on for, right? Like that's what I'm here for. Can you talk about let's just talk about a little about the social justice. And I'm gonna let y'all know, one of the things Andreas told me a long time ago, and I don't even know if he remembers this, but he was telling me about the neighborhood he lived in, and he kept cameras in his car just for the police. And I don't know if you remember telling me that, man. I always remember that because I'm like, that is a cold-blooded thing, right? Like, put the cameras in your car because if they want to trip, you got them, right?
But that's because they fucked with me repeatedly. Right. And the reason was I lived in a neighborhood, Flatbush Avenue, 71st Precinct, NYPD. The most thuggish gang in New York. And on a daily basis, I would watch them brutalize people. And because I lived in that neighborhood, they tried to brutalize me too. And here's the bottom line.
Right.
we talk about empowerment, we talk about social justice. When we're talking about these technologies, that's one aspect of it, is using technology to give yourself superpowers, right? So various technologies over time have given individuals superpowers, whether it's the printing press or a laptop that allows you to be a TV station like we're doing now, or be a blogger so you can compete with the news media, or be a journalist by using your smartphone to record the truth of what's happening on the street. All of these things are technologies that give individuals superpowers. And when you decentralize technology like that, you give so many people superpowers that they can even fight against highly centralized, very powerful adversaries like an organized state that is trying to remove their freedoms. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the economic one. You know, we talked about the on-ramps and whether they're going to close them down, or whether you can do Robinhood or Cash App or stuff like that. Here's the thing that what most people forget and ignore about what Bitcoin is and how you should look at it. People ask me all the time, should I buy Bitcoin now? How should I buy Bitcoin? And my answer has always been the same for the past 7 years. Don't buy it, earn it. Earn it. Why? Because the largest peer-to-peer decentralized exchange for fiat to crypto is the labor market. Always has been. It's been the largest decentralized exchange of value in the world, is people paying people for products and services and their labor. The labor market is the way, it's completely uncensorable, it's completely peer-to-peer, it's anonymous, it allows you to go in your local community and exchange value directly without intermediates, without corporations taking a cut, without the banks taking a cut, without anybody being able to stop you, without needing a license to exercise your profession and all of that. So one thing is earn it. But here's the other thing. When you switch to earning instead of buying, and you're no longer working for dollars, taking those dollars, converting them into crypto and saving your crypto, you fundamentally change the relationship between yourself and money. And the reason you do that is because not only are you fully entering the economy and turning it into a circular economy where you get paid in cryptocurrency for your labor and services, and then you pay others in cryptocurrency for their labor, products, and services. So there are no on-ramps and off-ramps. It's a closed economy. It's a circular economy. And to me, that's always been the ultimate goal. But here's the other thing. When you go into that economy, it's a very important statement of principles, and it's a very powerful move, because what you're also doing is you're exiting. You are withdrawing from the system that is taking a cut out of every day, every hour you work. The most appalling thing that I see, and I saw it at my time in Brooklyn, was that you had a local community that was being policed by suburban cops that were coming in from Staten Island, right, and policing a neighborhood that wasn't theirs, and with extreme brutality, extreme corruption, and murderous intent all the time. And the worst thing about that was that they were being paid out of the sweat and labor of the people in that community that they were brutalizing. So the end result is that not only do you end up getting brutalized by the state, and this is not just this is a global phenomenon. This happens everywhere. This is a constant power struggle between centralized organizations and states against the communities they supposedly serve. Not only were people in that neighborhood being brutalized, but they were paying for the privilege that was coming out of their payroll taxes. State and local taxes in places like that are regressive. They're a part of your paycheck no matter what income you're making, and it's taken out of your paycheck before you even get paid. So if you're getting paid in that way, if you're getting paid through that mechanism, you're paying for the cop who commutes into your neighborhood in order to brutalize you. That to me is unacceptable. So the power move is not only to earn crypto, but to withdraw your participation, your creative potential, your labor, from a system that uses all of those things against you. Now, obviously, that doesn't apply to me. I mean, even in that neighborhood, Yeah, I got harassed by cops. I got manhandled a couple of times because I refused to play along with their stupid games.
Comply.
I asserted my rights, but that was nothing compared to the daily indignities that were happening just outside my window.
Right.
And so, you know, this is about spreading that message in my mind. And the problem is that we talk about empowering the unbanked, the underbanked, and those who are oppressed in places like Venezuela. Well, guess what? Brooklyn is, in many ways, a little Venezuela, right? There are pockets in every country where people live under the thumb of oppression. And so these lessons apply there too. It's not for the people across the river in Wall Street. It was never for them.
Well, look, here's the thing, Andreas. So let's talk about this really quick, because I just want to. One of the things that that interested me from the very beginning. I was trying to, myself and Leif. I don't know if you remember Leif, but we were trying to figure out how to give everyone in the hood a Bitcoin miner.
Right.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was subsidized by the government, right?
Right.
But guess what happened? As we started on that path, ASICs came in. And we it's a whole lot harder to get people with the ASICs, right?
Right.
Get them to start mining because of the cost, the expense. So
yeah,
what
the
do
capital
you think,
cost.
Yeah, what do you think about it, about the fact that now the mining has gone into the hands of, which we knew that was going to happen. And I'm going to ask you another question, because I always ask this to people who've been in the game for a while. What do you think about the mining going into the hands, because Bitcoin was built on a capital structure, like he who has the most can mine the most, right? What do you think about it going into the hands of those that have the most fiat money or fiat value in the first place? Like, what do you think about that? And do you think that is could that become a problem in the future? I have to ask that question because, of course,
absolutely.
everyone else asked that question that supports all of these other coins. So I want to ask you that and see what you think about that.
So I hope I can answer this as direct at all.
Yes.
The bottom line is that you cannot change the Gini coefficient, the coefficient of inequality, income inequality and wealth inequality, with cryptocurrency, at least as conceived today. The rich get richer is not a feature of money, it's a feature of society. And any society in which you have free flow of capital will accumulate in that way. We're not going to change that. Here's the difference. The difference is, if you accumulate capital, can you use that accumulation of capital to change the very rules of the game and tilt the playing field in your favor so that everybody else doesn't even have a chance? Because we're not just talking about the ability to accumulate capital, we're talking about that in every other system, those who accumulate capital can turn around and then rig the game in their favor. And when they do that, then it's no longer an issue of income inequality. It's an issue of economic, political power inequality.
And control.
And control. So we're not going to solve the fact that those who start off with more capital can accumulate more capital. Whether it's proof of work, where it becomes a capital expense in buying silicon, and how close you are to silicon fabrication, and how much capital you can deploy in order to build a $100 million warehouse full of ASIC miners. And then, of course, the answer to that is not proof of stake, because proof of stake does the exact same thing. In order to bootstrap a proof of stake system, you have to have a pre-mine. You have to have a pre-allocation of capital to people you trust to not break the system on the first day, right? Otherwise, the system isn't stable. So in order to protect the network, you're going to have some kind of pre-allocation. Proof of stake cannot bootstrap from zero. Proof of work bootstraps from zero, but then becomes a manufacturing, industrial scale, capital intensive operation. And proof of stake becomes a capital intensive operation because you have to bootstrap it. Both of these create a system whereby the rich get richer. And that's because that's how society works. It has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Now, the question is, once the rich get richer, or when the rich already have some advantage, can they then turn around and change the rules of the system? They can't. In Bitcoin, they certainly can't. How do I know? They tried. In 2017, they tried. Not only did the miners try to change the rules of consensus, but several very, very big companies, exchanges, merchant companies, et cetera, and several multi-millionaires, perhaps billionaires, also tried to change the rules against the will. They failed. Not only did they fail, some of them lost $500 million failing. That is the point. So even if you have a system that reflects society's natural tendency, the accumulation, the Pareto distribution, 20% of the people get 80% of the gains, et cetera, you can still make a system where you can't buy yourself a new set of rules and shut out any, where we have very free, very open markets. There is an opportunity by applying critical thinking, by understanding and being able to see which technologies have merit versus which. And eventually the game gets completely rigged so that what you see on the surface is completely fake. Now, I think we can do better than that.
Well, here's the question. So, two things. Number one, I always envision, and I think about this, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, just to throw it out there as an idea. What if, instead of building Bitcoin based on capitalist principles, what if Bitcoin was built on more of a socialist type of a principle, wherein as anyone that is actually participating in the network itself actually got a share of every block that came through, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think that would change the entire paradigm, right? So now all you have to do is be running a node. It would recognize that you're running a node, and that would allow you to then mint yourself at that moment that your share of the network. What do you think that?
I think that I think the fundamental concept here is, I'm going to flip it on its head. Rather than thinking about how you change Bitcoin, think instead of each blockchain, each competing blockchain being a package that includes a set of rules, a monetary and economic system, and a community that is voluntarily participating. When you choose a blockchain, you choose for whatever proportion of your labor or capital that you put in, you choose to participate in this system of rules voluntarily, and that means you agree to all of the rules and terms and conditions, right? Now, you don't have to just choose one system, and most importantly, you don't have to move from the place you are. You can choose a different system while remaining exactly where you are, which breaks one of the main things that I think is broken about our current system, which is, if you're born in X place, you inherit all of the rules of the place of birth and have no other choice. It's a monopoly system, right? If you're lucky enough and you can travel, if your passport allows you to travel, maybe you can go and try your luck in another system with another set of rules. They're probably going to take away your children and put them in cages to make sure that doesn't happen. But the bottom line is that the system comes with a geography. The beautiful thing about blockchains and this idea of creating a virtual economy is that you can enter voluntarily, you can participate with a known set of rules. If you don't like it, you can exit voluntarily, enter another system. You could enter more than one system simultaneously. You could diversify across several ones, and everyone comes with the other voluntary participants who are your economy, the people you can trade with, and a set of rules that don't change, even if very powerful people in the system want them to change. So the simple answer is, Bitcoin as it is has a certain point of view, an economic, political, monetary point of view. And those who participate in that have chosen it, they like it, it's not going to change. That's the beauty. It isn't going to change. If you don't like it, you don't change Bitcoin. What you do is you exit and enter another system.
Right.
And we can build other systems. We can build systems that have other monetary characteristics, other economic and political characteristics, and they can be voluntary in their participation. Now, to the point of using a system that resembles socialism or universal basic income or a Marxist mud harvesting autonomous collective from another Monty Python's favorite movie. So that we can get away from, you know, a system of government based on a watery tart pulling out a sword from a rock. The basic idea here is you could have a system like that. You have to solve one fundamental problem, and that fundamental problem in distributed systems we call Sybil resistance, S-Y-B-I-L. So the idea is this. If you wanted to have one node, one vote, how do you know that a node is run by one person and that one person can't run more nodes and pretend to have more participation in the system and therefore earn more of the rewards? If there's a universal basic income in the system or some kind of redistribution of the reward of mining or whatever you want to call it, how do you ensure that the participation is equitable on a one person, one vote? Satoshi tried to do this with one CPU, one vote, and the introduction of ASICs very quickly turned that into one industrial scale $100 million manufacturing facility, one vote, right?
Right.
For whoever can afford that.
Right.
Now, if you wanted to do that, if everybody runs a node, the problem is you can't tell the difference between a node that belongs to one person, that is an honest participant and providing resources for the system versus 1,000 nodes that belong to one person, 100,000 nodes that belong to one person that simply has the capital to deploy as many of these Sybils, sock puppets, if you want, in order to take a bigger share. So that's a very interesting problem to solve. And people have been trying to solve that problem. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto's proof of work system is a solution to that problem, very specifically a solution to that problem. And it's not a perfect solution, but you can't fake proof of work. So it's a better solution than simply giving every IP address participation in consensus.
Right.
I think it's interesting to explore these things, and I'm not afraid of the idea that other people may have different political, economic, socioeconomic opinions than I do and may want to participate in different systems. The good news is they can't change Bitcoin because Bitcoin has a specific point of view and it's robust. They can experiment with other systems. And one of the beautiful things that's happened in this industry is everyone's experimenting. So you're going to see every political system imaginable, including many that have never been tried before, be expressed as a consensus network. This is the essence of this. This is politics as a network protocol, economics as a network protocol, social governance, voting, elections, how we manage our affairs as a network protocol, everything as a network protocol. And some will be robust and some won't and will fail. But the beauty is you can choose. And I think that's the most amazing thing that Satoshi Nakamoto did, open the door to a system where we all have a choice to voluntarily participate in a system, and then build a system that makes for a very good choice, at least for me.
Right. So here's one last question, man. I'll ask you another question because I know it's getting close to the hour. What's the future, man? Like if I were able to give you a magic wand and you hit the future, like where do you want to see Bitcoin in the future outside of people having their own keys? Like where do you want to see this go into the future?
I think the most important thing that needs to happen, well, I think there are two things that need to happen in the Bitcoin space, but also in the broader cryptocurrency space. In Bitcoin, I think the most important thing is privacy. Privacy over everything else. If we don't make Bitcoin more private and more fungible, it will not survive a concerted state-level attack that attempts to punish people for using it. So you can't stop people from using it. You can't stop them from starting to use it. And you can't confiscate their money.
Right.
But you can confiscate their family and throw them into a dungeon. You can confiscate, you can take possession of their bodies and throw them into a dungeon. And so if using this system has in real life consequences to your physical safety, then we have a problem. Anonymity is the only way we can make robust systems that allow individuals to assert their rights and their freedoms without then being punished by an authoritarian system. And so right now, there are a few authoritarian systems that are trying to punish people who get involved in Bitcoin. Most places don't, so it's all kumbaya. We have a narrow window of opportunity. This is the honeymoon period. And in this honeymoon period, we need to take this cute little gecko and turn it into a Komodo dragon of a cryptocurrency. Scaly, ugly, biting, and willing to defend itself, because it will come under attack. The only reason it hasn't is because it's not systemically dangerous yet. And I strongly believe that. And if Bitcoin doesn't do it, that doesn't mean the end is here. It just means that other systems will. And that's why I'm also interested in privacy coins, because I think that's a very important factor. That's more important than scaling. It's more important than user interface design. It's more important than the next moonshot, because all of the systems that take shortcuts on privacy, on decentralization, on robustness, in order to get to massive scaling to whatever else, open themselves out. So if they become successful, then they can easily be disrupted. And that means we're not going anywhere. So that's where I think we should go with Bitcoin.
Because hold on, before you go on, let me ask you that from a privacy standpoint. If we did not buy into the we need fiat for Bitcoin, it would probably make it, it's not going to be completely anonymous, but it would make it a lot more pseudonymous than it is now, because there will be no connectivity to an actual human being at that point, right? If we, the fact that we continue to keep trading it for fiat in and out, and because the fiat system, we have to have KYC AML, then that kind of has, because like I said, I used to meet people that I never have seen before, get the Bitcoin, go on my way, and we would never see each other again. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, I didn't ask their name. We just made sure it was a transaction directly. I get the Bitcoin, he gets the dollars, and we keep moving. That, you see what I'm saying? If we didn't buy into this fiat thing, wouldn't that be a lot better if we finally got to the point where we built systems that were completely around Bitcoin? Because once you get there,
no, it wouldn't.
You can do those kind of things. Yeah, go ahead.
It wouldn't be enough. And the reason it wouldn't be enough is because if you have privacy and anonymity today and you make transactions, but in the future, your privacy is breached, right? They got you. They got you on a bullshit charge. You're just driving in your neighborhood and they're like, your headlight is broken, sir. You're like, what? My headlight isn't broken. Now it is. Step out of the vehicle. Give me your phone. Use your finger to unlock it. You don't have an option. Great. Right. Who are these people you're transacting with? Now you are in trouble. And the problem is that we can go back in the history and unravel everything you've ever done on this blockchain, which maybe at the time was perfectly illegal. You donated. Lamar, I see here that in 2017, you donated to BLM. Very, very progressive of you. But of course, you know, now BLM is a terrorist organization and we're sending them to Guantanamo. So unfortunately, retroactively,
right.
You see, that's what happens in authoritarian states. Maybe it doesn't happen in the US. Let's hope it fucking doesn't. But it is happening right now in Hong Kong. It is happening right now in Russia. It is happening right now throughout China. Right. And so therefore, it's not good enough to simply stop the points at which identity gets affixed or attached to your addresses. You have to go back and not leave trails that become incriminating evidence for crimes you didn't even know you were committing because they weren't crimes when you were doing them. And if you don't have that level of robustness, you have a problem, which is why we need to sort this stuff out. So I still think this is the top priority for Bitcoin, and for every blockchain.
And it's funny because I started to experiment and research Green a lot, right? I was there really early on. And a lot of people, because of its drop off in fiat, stopped looking at it as much, right? Not realizing that the technology behind it can actually help us a lot moving forward, even if we added it to something like Bitcoin. So I'm with you, man. Like, I am so anti-surveillance. It's crazy. Like, I literally just got a phone SIM card after a long time, just because it's not that I don't, like, the stuff I do is not anything illegal. It's just that I don't want people, like you said, to go back and connect me and say, well, you know, you did this with such and such. And so I think it's extremely important. But yeah, let's go on to the future.
Illegal is an issue of a moment in time and the prevailing characteristics of a society, right?
It's bull, because it was illegal to free a slave.
It was illegal to free a slave. Everything, it was absolutely illegal for George Washington to raise an army against his king. You know, all of those things were illegal. The bottom line here is that retroactively we can pretend that there's no need for a struggle, and you can say nice palliative things like, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, and all of that bullshit. But the bottom line is that, and this is a very important part of my principles, without privacy, you have no other rights. It's as simple as that. Without privacy, you don't have speech. Without privacy, you don't have freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom against search, freedom of your bodily integrity. You don't have any of those freedoms, because if they can't stop you from acting, they can punish you after the fact for acting in ways that were absolutely within your rights at the time when you acted. And if you can be stripped of your freedom, you can be stripped of every single freedom and right you have if you are stripped of your privacy. Let me give you one example so you can understand. So hopefully our audience can understand how important this is. Do you know they have elections in North Korea?
No.
Yep. So they have free elections in North Korea. You can vote. There's one. One small difference, apart from the fact that they pick who can run. But there is an opponent to Kim Jong-un every time they have elections. The only difference is that when you fill in your ballot, you have to show it to the party official before you put it in the box. That's it. That's the only difference. You can vote for whoever you want, and watch your family disappear 30 minutes later. That's the only difference. They just take away a tiny smidgen of privacy. They take the secrecy of the vote out of it. You have to cast your ballot openly in front of the party official, and you can vote for whoever you want at penalty of death for making the wrong vote. So privacy is a foundational freedom, and without it, all of the other things wash away so quickly. And I think, I come from Europe. I grew up, my father grew up in a village that was occupied by the Nazis. He told me the stories of the Gestapo walking in his street and pulling people out of their homes at night. In Europe, this shit is recent, it's real, it's understood, and it's very, very top of mind for people. Americans haven't had that experience yet. And that's wonderful. I hope we never do. But one of the things that Europeans understand very, very clearly, and we've seen it again in Yugoslavia, we've seen it in Rwanda, we've seen it in a whole bunch of other places, is that in a week, everything can change. You can think you have a middle-class, open democracy of, just like the Yugoslavians thought, wonderful, flourishing democracy, and then 2 weeks later, you're dealing with genocide. This shit happens fast, and there will always be some people who just go along with it. So the reason these technologies are important, and the reason privacy is important, is because it empowers individuals to resist basically capricious authoritarian power. And I hope that you live in a place where you don't need that right now. How wonderful it is to be like that. Billions of people already live in places where they desperately need that. And so if you do this, do it for the right reasons, understand how this technology works, educate others on the principles, and do it for the other 6 billion before you become one of them.
Right. And now Bitcoin future, man. We want Antonopoulos Adamus. Like give us the Andreas future of Bitcoin, man. What do you think?
I think that this technology is full of surprises. One thing that I've realized from the very early days is that I wasn't expecting and was completely blindsided by the very invention of Bitcoin, and then again by the invention of several other technologies.
Well, all right. Well, welcome, Black. Welcome, Black. And we're
of the Gestapo walking in his street
or not,
and pulling people out of their homes at night. In Europe, this shit is recent.
Or not. God bless. My team is doing the best they can, Jabari. 3 days of this. Hallelujah. It's the highest praise. Got you on deck. All right. whose screen are do we have up, Sister Yvonne? All right, well, that's probably an answer. Jamari, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get started. Just want to just say thank you for coming and hosting and leading a blockchain Sunday school. I think after 3 days of this, we need a spiritual ending, closure, to kind of get us focused on, is it probably to center us and not probably focus, to help us center ourselves, especially in this new normal of a pandemic. So what do you have for us on this glorious day that the Lord has made, as we rejoice and be glad in it? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I did my best.
It's an absolute pleasure. Good day. My name is Jamari Peterson. It's a pleasure to come before you to actually even talk about this intersection between, for me, faith and cryptocurrency, purpose and cryptocurrency, what blockchain technologies mean in regards to our actual lives as tools. Kind of just to give some quick background. I came to this space in 2016. I was trying to figure out how to do voting. And I really looked at this technology as a way of providing a decentralized, liquid democracy, and really came to understand that it was more than just this monetary policy, but it was a system that allowed us to remove ourselves from being stuck in our geopolitical location, meaning based on where we was born, we have these rules that are set around us, these institutions. The Federal Reserve and its money, you spend the dollars this way. You can only spend it here like this. And what I realized when I saw this was that people are now able to choose a new system that reflects their values and their interests. That's what Bitcoin was at its core: the ability to select a value system that reflected the world that they wanted to live in. And understanding that really opened my eyes to the fact that this is what disenfranchised communities have needed, but it's also what the faith-based community has needed. It needed a way to break out of the mold that's been created around it as being kind of integrated into the existing systems, and a way to set itself apart. Because at least biblically in the Bible, they talk about being a peculiar people, right? Like we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be set apart. The things that I kind of wanted to walk through it and talk about today. I'm also going to be looking at the chat in case there's any questions, concerns, so I can make sure I refer to those. I normally like dialogues, but because of the way today's system is, I'm going to have to more so be a little bit more soliloquy monologue in. But I will try to be responsive as much as possible. There's pretty much, I guess, I got about approximately five like larger scripture points that I kind of want to bring out and relate to blockchain related technologies as a tool. One part is going to be agreement. One's going to be money and monetary policy. Another part is going to be just rules, and then commitment and politics. And all this is really under this idea of like, well, what is purpose? What are you trying to aim to achieve? And what is your community all about? And I guess before you get to that, you need to start talk about technology so you can understand how it's going to relate to these scriptures that we're going to look at. In the technology, at least the ones that I've seen so far, the core mechanic really comes around this thing called consensus. How do you come to agreement about what the truth is, about what has occurred within these digital transactions, or in some cases within real life, so that you can convey that to the rest of the parties that are engaging in that system? Within Bitcoin, we talk about the Nakamoto consensus. We talk about proof of work. We talk about the fact that you're selecting the next block on by somebody who has expended the energy and has also demonstrated that they're being honest about the transaction history, so that other people are in agreement with that, and they can agree to allow them to mint the next Bitcoin or the next set of Bitcoin, right? So, but that's a consensus mechanism for them. It's coming to a decision by the most work. So it's called, I think, the longest chain. They're looking at what has occurred to make sure that this is building upon what came before. And within proof of stake systems, you have a variety of different consensus mechanisms. You have stuff that's called Byzantine fault tolerance, like saying when there's two, as long as there's two out of three that agree, then that is truth. That's similar to things like Tendermint, which is on the Cosmos network and other networks. So there's different ways of coming to agreement. There's other ones where everybody should just shout out what they think happened, and then whatever loudest voices at the end of that round is what we take as truth. There's all these different ways of coming to consensus. And then from that, you can then build, say, okay, now that we have a methodology and approach to come into agreement, what are we agreeing about? What are the rule sets that we are agreeing on? Are we agreeing that you can't double spend, you can't spend the same money twice? Are we agreeing that transactions can only happen between 8 to 5 p.m. or the 24/7? Are we agreeing that you can send transactions anywhere you want at any time, or are they restricted by some other set of rules? All these things are about agreement. And the power of agreement is immense, and it was recognized even in Scripture. So I do take basically a Judeo-Christian perspective on things. I am a Christian. However, because the Abrahamic religions are some of the large faiths on the planet, I believe this will resonate with most people. And even if it don't resonate with your direct faith, I think there's the same nuggets inside the Christian faith as there are inside of some other faiths as well. So hopefully this is beneficial to whoever is listening. So the first scripture, I think I have the ability to share my screen. See, I was going to share with you Genesis 11 and 9. Actually, no, I'll start with Matthew. Start right here. Matthew 18 and 15 and 20. It says, if another member of the church sins against you, go out and point the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be known to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. So shun them, push them away. Don't do nothing with them. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where there are 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I am there among them. This is about agreement. This is the process that they're talking about how to organize the church, the body of Christ, right? But you'll also hear in this, they're talking about what do you do when there's conflict? And then you see some of this relationship in blockchain selection. It's like, what do you do when you're a node and you're hearing something that doesn't match what the rule sets are? You look at it and you ignore it. You keep moving forward with people that are in agreement, that are willing to operate under the rule set that you all have. So, and here they talk about the power of agreement scripturally. Like if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, you're like, when you come together as a collective, there is power in that, right? And this is like when 2 come in the name of the Father, right? But then they also present another perspective of this that says agreement isn't always just about coming in the name of the Father. Agreement in and of itself is something that God has blessed us with that allows us to do amazing things. And it is preferable that we fulfill our purpose with those things. But I just want to make sure that we also look at scripture that shows you, hey, this is generally applicable. So we go to Genesis 11, 1 through 9, right? And this is the story of the Tower of Babel. You may have heard about it. Now, the whole world had one language and the same words at this time. This is what the scripture says. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said, this is the part that I want us to pay attention to. Look, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do now will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech. Why is this important? This is important because this is the Lord recognizing and presenting to us the reality that he has given us choice and the ability to create things that are beyond what we can individually do. When you can come together as one people under one language, under one protocol, under one system, under one set of values, under one in commonality, nothing becomes impossible for you. That's what blockchain and cryptocurrencies allow for you to do. You can choose a system that reflects your interests and the way that you want the world to work. And then you can abide by that, and nothing becomes impossible for you to do within that system, because now you empower each other to work together towards a purpose. So so this is about agreement, and that's the first core part of the blockchain-based systems. It's like, how do you come to consensus? How do you come to agreement? And when you do, what does that mean for you? And we see here in scripture that means that we have the capability of changing the world when we come to consensus. So here's another different scripture that's really just about the idea of money and its relationship to people of faith, at least as far as Jesus was concerned. So we're going to go to Matthew. I'm going to go a little bit faster because I know that the time I started was a little bit later than what I originally had planned for. So we're going to Matthew 22, 21. And this is after when Jesus was out teaching, and then some people came up to him, and there was like, start at 17. Tell us then, what you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? But Jesus, who was aware of their malice, said, why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax. And they brought him to denarius. And then he said to them, whose head is this and whose title? They answered, the emperor's. Then he said to them, give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's. When they heard this, they were amazed and left him and went away. This is important because this is talking about the dynamic of the systems that you interact with. We as people of faith, and when you're driven by faith and purpose, you do have to recognize that you are existing within a geopolitical landscape. There are things happening around you and rules around you that if they do not impede upon your faith, it encourages you to abide by. But you give them that which is theirs. That which is God belongs to God. So when it comes to blockchain cryptocurrencies, once again, you're presented with this perspective of like, what belongs to the state, what belongs to God, what belongs to me, and if it belongs to me, am I giving that to God? So therefore, those things are used for the purpose of the kingdom. What is the monetary policy? What are the rules upon which I'm going to abide, and why? And then when we think about what these rules are, the thing that's really cool is like, we actually heard in the earlier replay, was talking about Bitcoin should stay as Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin's rules were designed for a purpose, for a particular economic, political sensibility, right? But there is the potential to build systems that reflect other interests. So what are some of these other rules that could exist inside of the system, right? That you can design around to meet. One of those rules we're going to see inside inside, let's see, the Leviticus. In Leviticus, you have Leviticus 25 and 8. And by the way, if you have questions or anything like that, please feel free to post them in the chat. I will make sure that I respond to them as long as I see them. Yes, I agree. Somebody said BTC was designed to say to screw Caesar. And absolutely. And I'm speaking from a perspective of integrating into the system, because one thing Paul talk about, when in Rome, do as Rome. When you are inside of a place and you're trying to service a people, you need to be aware of what their cultural tendencies are, and also how to best reach them. So yes, I agree that we need to design systems that allow us to set us apart, but we also have to recognize that we are within the existing system that we are breaking off from. But in doing that, you don't have to not render to the government what is the government. So if you have fiat dollars still, or if you convert your BTC into fiat dollars and don't operate inside of a pure BTC mechanism, well, then surely you should be paying your taxes in that, which is the fiat dollar of your country or region at the minimum. Like, that's not speaking about what you do with your BTC, right? Like what you do with your cryptocurrencies itself. Like they have rules and regulations for you being in the country. Like, I mean, scripturally, I wouldn't say that there's a reason to not pay them, but however, it does say also that you need to render to God, which is God's, and that you need to be fulfilling your purpose, and that you need to be working towards something greater than yourself. So whatever it takes to get there, you should do. And we're going to speak to actually kind of about how these rules and commitment and our political things kind of have an impact as well. So I'm going to get to that scripture as well. But thank you for saying that, Todd. Leviticus 25:8. It says, and this is about the rules section. So we kind of went through agreement. What does that mean? A little bit about money. And then this is a little bit about our rules. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives 49 years. Then you shall have a trumpet sounding loud. On the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement, you shall have a trumpet sounded throughout all the land. And you shall hallow the 50th year, and you shall proclaim liberty through the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be jubilee for you. You shall return, every one of you, to your property, and every one of you to your family. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the outgrowth or harvest the unproved vines, for it is jubilee. It shall be holy to you. In this year of Jubilee, you shall return every one of you to your property. When you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not cheat one another. When you buy from your neighbor, you shall pay only for the number of years since the Jubilee. The seller shall only charge you for the remaining crop years. This is an economic system that they're talking about. This is a set of rules that are being conveyed here. Now, I'm not saying that you can necessarily tie all of our blockchain rules to real world assets right now, but what you see is you can design a system that matches a concept of saying, hey, we believe that people should be relieved of their debts after 7 years, after 14 years. So then you can design systems that reflect that value system. That is what I think is important to draw out of this. Is like, we can design systems that reflect the values of our community. And then, and where is this also shown at? This is also shown in Acts 2, where you see, I'm sorry, I'm jumping scripture like this and not showing myself, but I have a lot of information I just wanted to drop on you real quick, and hopefully is valuable to you and allows you to kind of see from a perspective of you are empowered to make choices. And this is a tool. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies are a tool for empowering your communities and for operating in the world. So here's Acts 2:43 through 47. And this is around after Jesus had passed away, and the Holy Spirit had came down upon the crowds. All came upon everyone, because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. This was a community coming together and deciding on an economic policy or on a system of interacting and behaving with each other that matched where they were at that time. So all who believed were together had all things in common. They would sell their possession and good and distribute the proceeds. This was a system that they were electing. They were choosing. It was not forced upon them. To me, this is one of the big differences between the political system of like everybody has to be socialist or communist, and people are choosing to operate inside of a system where they share, where they distribute, where they interact together, right? And that's what's amazing about this technology, this tool. It allows us to create the fundamental technologies that can support a resurgence of systems that we choose to participate that can be of benefit to not just us, but other believers, those who are in need. We can literally design our future financial institutions, political institutions in a way that reflects the values that we have. And then people can choose to move between those ones to be in one that is most in alignment, that's most sustainable, that's most viable. And it's my belief that when we design these systems in such a way that people get drawn to that which is good, right? So if we design systems that are elective, that are allow people to move in and out, but also ones that show the power of love and kindness and grace and mercy, that people will be drawn into that and your numbers will grow. That's why I believe that's what I see when I look at scriptures. I see this transition. And I just wanted to show one more scripture, which is Nehemiah. Nehemiah is right here. I know it's right here. Nehemiah here. There we go. Nehemiah 5. And it was Nehemiah 5. Let me see. It was 5 and in the beginning, I think 5 and 5, yeah. Now there was a great outcry of people and of their wives against the Jewish kin. For those who were there, with our sons and our daughters, we are many. We must get grain so they may eat and stay alive. There were also those who said, we are having to pledge our fields, our vineyards, and our houses in order to get grain during the famine. And there was those who said, we are going to have to borrow money on our fields and vineyards to pay the king's taxes. Now our flesh is the same as that of our kindred. Our children are the same as their children. And yet we are forcing our sons and daughters to be slaves. And some of our daughters have been ravished. We are powerless. And our fields and vineyards now belong to others. And Nehemiah said, I was very angry when I heard their outcry of these complaints. After thinking it over, I brought charges against the nobles and officials. I said to them, you are all taking interest from your own people. And I called a great assembly to deal with it. They came together, right? And they said to them, as far as we are able, we have brought back our Jewish kindred who have been sold to other nations. But now you are selling your own kin who must then be brought back to us. They were silent and they could not find a word to say. So I said, the thing that you are doing is not good. Should you not walk in the fear of our God to prevent the taunts of nations of our enemies? Moreover, I and my brothers and my servants are lending them money and grain. Let us stop this talk taking of interest. Restore to them this very day their fields, their vineyards, their olive orchards, and their houses, and interest on money, grain, wine, and all the oil that you've been exacted from them. Then they said, we will restore everything and demand nothing more from them. We will do as you say. Because they came as an assembly, like they came together. Remember, don't forget that. And I called the priests and made them take on an oath to do as they had promised. I also shook out the fold of my garments and said, so may God shake out everyone from house and from property who does not perform this promise. Thus must they be shaken out and empty. And all the assembly said amen and praise the Lord. And the people did as they had promised, right? So here's the thing that's interesting. Now we can design systems that enforce what was said. When we make agreements, we can design systems that are robust against attack and are demonstrably true. That's the amazing part of these blockchain related technologies. You set the rules and you can design them in a way that people who elect to be in that system must abide from them, right? And then here's the other part of it was that comes to this was a commitment about commitment and politics, right? So we're going to see something here, right, that I like. Where did I go to? I want to jump to even though it's a little bit, I devote myself to the work on this wall and acquire, and all the servants were gathered there for work. I'm sorry, 17. Moreover, they were at my table, 150 people, and Jews and officials, besides those who came from the nation around us. Now that which was prepared for one day was 1 ox and 6 sheep, fowls prepared for me, and every day skins of wine in abundance. Yet all this I did not demand the food allowance of the governor because of the heavy burden on the labor on people. Remember, for my good, oh my God, all that I've done for this people. This is interesting because he was choosing, like even if you go to 14, neither I nor my brothers ate the food allowances of the governor. They were choosing to extract themselves from the system, from the geopolitical system that they were in, and demonstrate that they had the ability to do without those things. So I mean, I guess that was my media sharing, so I'm in the sharing. So that's the part that's interesting to me, right? Like Nehemiah was advocating for a better future for his people, and he was bringing them together, willing to take the political steps as a community to better demonstrate their economic and political resilience. And that's what we have to remember as we're participating in this space. It's not just about try to make enough money to become rich. And because you can do that in this space, like Bitcoin is definitely has the system of the quintillion effect, which is basically if you happen to be in early, as value continues to grow on the network, you will accrue more value, which is great as we are right now in the early days, and why I encourage people to participate in that system if they can. But it's not necessarily reflective of a system that matches all the interests of every faith, right? So therefore, we might have to think about how do we create systems that also reflect our interests as a community, as a religious group, as a community group, as a group of affiliated people under some common cause. How do we take the assets that we create inside other systems as we go out into the world and bring them back into a system that reflects the interests of those of which you share the most core, important, and vital values? Those who you are building with towards a purpose that is outside of just monetary gain, but a way of existing in this world where everyone has the opportunity to be bathed in the light of the Most High, right? So how do you design a system that empowers folks? That is what we should be looking at, what we should be thinking about, how we should be considering our every interaction with these technologies. How do we use this for the empowerment of our people, and how do we reflect the values that we care most about? So really the points I really went over kind of was, there's the point of agreement. We looked at Genesis and Matthew, which were two distinct Old Testament, New Testament. I was talking about when people come together, the power that they have, the ability to change the world. We had the Lord saying, when 2 or more gather in my name, I am in the midst. And you also had Genesis, the Tower of Babel, where they're coming together, they're building a tower, and the Lord's like, look at this, what they are doing. When they come together like this, they can do the impossible. Let's break up the language, because this is not the time for that for them here. Like they need to recognize the glory of the Most High, right? So that was broken apart. But the reality and the other lesson, though, is the power of when you come in agreement, when you come with consensus about what you are doing, what you are building. That is what this space is about. Agreement that is robust against governmental systems, against military mights, against your neighbor. You can choose a system that allows you to communicate, to make choices globally amongst those who share your same values. So that's agreement. Then money is like, what does this money concept mean to you? Who does it belong to? How do you operate with it? How do you share it? It's like, render to Caesar that is Caesar's, is what the scripture says. However, we're also trying to build an economic system that is separate. We are trying to withdraw from that system and demonstrate that we are good all by ourselves sometimes. So that is what Nehemiah was showing, that you can have a commitment and a political stance to show that, hey, you have to do better by us. You have to change these rules, and we can continue to operate even if you don't. Even if you decide to act in your same way, we can create an alternative system that shows why we are who we are and the power and capabilities we have as a people. And that's where the rules come in. What are the rules that you want to operate under? And how do you integrate those within the systems that you participate? How do you enforce them in a way where you don't need a military police coming, but it's encoded digitally, where it's by agreement and consensus by those who are within that space. And then at the end of the day, it's really always about community. It's about coming together, establishing that value together, being empowered together so that you can fulfill whatever your purpose is. So this is really what I just want to bring, this concept, this idea that these blockchain related technologies, cryptocurrencies, are meant to be tools for your journey through life. They're meant to be a way for you to move to your next part of your life, to the next phase, to achieve the goals in a way that's pleasing to whoever you may serve. And these technology is an innovative, revolutionary way of achieving this. Because before, you had to come up to where people meet face to face, but now you can establish a digital rule set that spans the globe and allows people to be, who are even the most repressed regimes, to be able to participate in a system of value with you and to share with you in a way that they never could be before. We are more powerful now than we ever be. We have the capability to be more powerful now than ever before, to change the institutions upon which our current existence have been built and shape them into something that is better, something that's better, improved, and that's for us. And we need to take this opportunity to do so. And that's what's so powerful about this Black Blockchain Summit. It was the ability to hear, to talk, to dialogue, to interact about these technologies and what they mean, how they interact, how they're being used right now. But it's upon us to do as we do, which is to shape and form this into something that reflects us, that reflects our image. And if you're a believer, that reflects the image of God. And then from that, we can live more prosperous, purpose-filled lives. So yeah, that's really what I just wanted to convey, to talk about. It is absolutely a pleasure to have an opportunity to be before you and to discuss this intersection between faith and cryptocurrency, purpose, blockchains, and so on.
All right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. That's the highest praise. I'd be remiss if we didn't include a prayer. So, Yvonne, can you give us a prayer?
Yes, let's pray. Uwiteka Mana nziza, gitare cy'amahanga, turagushimira kubw'uyu munsi, turakwinginze ngo Mana ukomeze turinde, twigaragarize muri byose, ducire inzira aho zitari. Mana nziza rero, turabizi ko udukunda, utwifuriza ibyiza, turakwinginze ngo uturindire abacu n'ibyacu aho biri bitandukanye, tubisabye twiyambaje mu izina rya Yesu Kristo. Amen.
Amen. All right. And brother, amazing, Jamari, that was super amazing, super helpful. I guess I think the biggest points I have, oftentimes people talk about this technology strictly from a financial concept. Let's talk about what you really discussed about how we can better interact with each other and connect with each other in ways that are super scalable. Again, you talk about consensus. We talk about this so much, even when we have people ask us the value of Bitcoin as if it's somehow God said so, when in actuality, gold is a rock and it's just a rock. And all the issues that we've had with the issues of COVID, you can have a whole bunch of rocks. They're not going to keep you safe from COVID. So the person with the most goats might make it longer than all the person with the rocks, because you can't even eat the darn rocks. So consensus is a concept I think you connected and even brought it forth through the use of some of those biblical texts. And this, as you stated, this is in no way telling anyone what to believe. The purpose of this is to leverage technology, this particular technology, and explore its implications to our Black community. And we know as a people with primacy, meaning the first people, these religions in many ways have been brought forth through our people in a way that we should always be willing to discuss, analyze, and look at the intersectionality of what we do every day and the things that we or new things that we might do every day. So with that being said, we talked about your entree into the space, as well as talking about this consensus. What are some of the things you've seen grow? I mean, you've been in the space for some times now. What are some projects and some concepts that you see that are super helpful in this way that we can work together in God's glory?
I mean, the reality is probably the closest project I've seen that reflected an interest about values was really the work of Bill Murray, formerly Bit Murray, like in interacting with people in Zimbabwe and providing them a means to in regards to their farming resources to be able to interact, acquire the resources and use them for farming, right? Because that was for them, that's their core way of creating income, of interacting, and of surviving, right? And then one of the things that Bit Murray did was design a system so that they could have like discount vouchers and things of that nature in their way of getting of decreasing the supply chain, or increasing like the value of the supply chain for them, and kind of have more of a potential revenue sharing type of system at the end. I thought that was a concept that was vital for the considerations, and I was like, okay, these are the systems, these are the kind of smart contracts. I'm a big smart contract person. These are the kind of smart contracts people need to write, right? Ones that was like saying, this is the farmers collective, like, and then basically everybody has some NFT that validates their identity, or some other system of verifying identity, and when they participate in that space, they know that when they return, that they're giving back in, and it's a discount for other members, right? And every member of that collective then has the ability to analyze what's going on, and even as a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, right? They can say, okay, hey, this person's not abiding by the rules, so therefore they can't participate in the next round of services. But then you can do this in a way where it's globally accessible, anybody can participate, but the people that you care about can benefit from that that system. So that's kind of extrapolation from what I saw Bit Murray, which is now Bill.
I first of all, I definitely appreciate the mention and actually the work. And I think, talking about smart contracts and talking about where we are, one of the disappointing parts of that was that we had looked at the Neo blockchain as the protocol that we were going to work with, and which is not the most decentralized, but we thought that because they used, software program languages that were familiar, like the use of Solidity always as a software is problematic because it's a new language that has its own bugs in it. And then actually a new concept called blockchain and a new concept in blockchain called a smart contract. Like if you're trying to win, that's like, you wouldn't set up, like if you're really trying to win, that's a hell of a way to set it up to win. So to get people to adopt something with that many news in it, it's almost like you don't want anybody to adopt. You want just a handful of people because you literally made it so that access. So with Neo, they had, again, I want to say, and I can't get off the top of my head, of course, C, you can use C, Microsoft, C#. There were literally languages that would give us more capacity to have developers to help us. And we both being engineers, you being civil, me being mechanical, us having a background in the scientific method and applied sciences, you know, definitely wanted to be able to increase the pool of people that could help us. If everybody involved had to go learn Solidity, you just made a bottleneck for no reason, like zero reasons. It's not even a superior language. Like you just zeroed this out for just a few people. And again, white supremacy ideology or the few people, the Caesars, like there's already a problem with 1%. Now you've made the access to people who could help us 0.5%. You know, that's just an uphill battle. But I think you're right with being able to leverage a scalable way that's transparent. I think in a more simplistic way, and I think you alluded to it again, and you're looking at political systems and democracies or so-called democracies, being able to come up with transparent ways to arrive to consensus where you know, and some of this, and this is why we don't talk about as much about Satoshi. We talk about how there was a financial crisis, but part of my activist journey involved the Occupy Wall Street concepts. And any time I remember when people wanted to speak, you said mic check, and they would literally have a way where when you said a word, people would actually repeat the word to actually amplify your words. There were some very interesting things done to decentralize. Up until then, most of the time you had a Reverend Sharpton or you had a leader, but when the Occupy came, there were literally people who were involved in organizing at the forefront, but it was so decentralized that when they ran up into the park in New York to get people out, there were people in DC. I went to an Occupy movement in Durban, South Africa. There had started this movement, and they were using some of the same abilities to connect and develop consensus that were, again, more progressive than the old days. Just raise your hand, all those in favor. And again, raise your hand could be, I'm looking at you. And if you raise your hand, somebody was talking about democracy in North Korea, where they literally, when you go vote, they got the guy looking at your vote, like you got to show the party leader. Like, yeah, this is democracy, I'm voting. Hey, look what you got to show the person what you did. So there's some, you know, this concept of democracy is probably overstated, but I think the words that you brought forth about how we can leverage the blockchain and how you've in your journey of discovery in this space have looked at blockchain as a way for us to better interact and with each other in a way that's more equitable and just. Are there any projects that speak to directly that you like, or aspects of that?
Yeah, so there's a project that hasn't, like, there's a concept that I really like that I haven't seen executed yet. It's called the time dollar system, essentially, which is basically a movement from the valuing time, from the valuing by necessarily expertise, but by valuing by your contribution, right? So basically, let's say you're a small community church and you're a plumber. Grandma Jenkins needs her house plumbed. You go, you plumb. It takes you an hour. You get an hour worth of time dollars or whatever, right? And then that hour worth of time dollars can be used with Lori Esquire, who's a lawyer, for an hour's worth of his time. And now you have the system where you're circulating like your monetary system between each other, but the base currency is time now. And now you're reflecting, are you building, are you participating, are you actively engaged within the community in a way to build us up? And then anything that you accrue outside of that system is just added to the overall institutional power. So you're moving value amongst yourself, but you're also accumulating external value from those who aren't part of your system.
I know, I think in Islam, they have this thing about giving charity. And then, of course, there's also a piece with the church with tithing, How would that interact with, again, I'm not asking you to speak on things you don't know, but with the things you do know, how would that, is there a connection to tithing, or is that totally something separate?
No. Tithing. So, for example, right? So, I think of things as part of which system are you talking about, right? Tithing is what you have created external to the system, and then you're bringing into the church house or into your synagogue or into that system, right? That which you have been blessed with outside, it enters in. But then within the system, you also have your own internal operations, and how you make the internal operations more efficient. Like you remove the monetary concept that's on the outside, and you operate by something different.
Could the time be considered, based on what you know of Scripture, as tithing, or it has to be like a rock or something?
Oh no, okay, no. So I believe that tithing can be time, resources, and there's time, resources, and there's a third one that I'm blanking on right now. But yes, no, time is a form of tithing, because your time matters, and especially if you make money with your time, well then you're directly contributing to value. Now, there's also a heart issue, though, right? Like in reality. So we know that there was Cain and Abel, like in the Old Testament, and then they both gave offerings. One gave his prized animal. The other one did a bunch of agricultural things. It wasn't that something was wrong with agricultural things. It was a heart issue. It was like, what were you thinking when you tithe this? Were you trying to avoid giving up something that was really, really valuable to you? Or is just because it was what was on hand at the moment? Like, so that's always a consideration. Like, I believe you can tithe.
No, I think that's interesting. Do you think those things related to matters of the heart? Do you think there's a connection to that with the blockchain, or no?
Not with blockchain. I think with the way we operate, because so the rules are set, right? So what I share, like what I send is what I'm sending. If I'm sending you an asset and you're choosing to accept it, but when it comes to tithing isn't about.
No, let's separate. I'm not, and I'm doing a bad job. You really keep pulling threads that just make my brain want to go there. When you said matters of the heart, you said the question became, was this something that really was a matter of the heart, or were they trying to avoid? What you've seen with the blockchain system, are there ways that if we wanted to identify the intensity or the I used to give this thing. I gave a speech about how white supremacy colonialism underdeveloped the world. When there's a book called Open Veins of Latin America, before the U.S. government killed Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez gave this book to Barack Obama, Open Veins of Latin America. And in the book, the author talks about how when South America was colonized, or what we call South America, he gave a context where he said the most powerful, he talked about a horse, and he said the most powerful part of a horse's body, or most useful part of a horse's body, is his back. So when you relegate a horse to a beast of burden, it's fair that it might just be the most useful part of the body of the horse to use it to carry things and all those things. Now, then he just posed that to the human being. He said the most powerful, useful part of a human being's body is his brain, her brain. And when you relegate a human being to a beast of burden, you just eliminate the most powerful attribute and contributions to society, thereby underdeveloping the world. That was his thesis. I had someone tell me that it's not the brain that's most powerful. It's actually the heart. And I was like, again, I did have some people say that when we were talking about the horse, maybe the tail was the most strongest part. And then talking about humans, maybe it's the arm or maybe it's the leg. Like you get those like weird folks trying to argue with you. Look, stop the petty argument. I'm just making I'm just making a point. And then they want to go in and major in the minor. Well, I think technically the femur, I'm like, are you kidding me? But anyway, my point is, but the person who mentioned the heart, was really trying to send a message and say there's something strong to me. And then they even alluded to the fact that I didn't get married because of my brain. It was my heart that was the obviously most powerful. I was like, oh, wow. In having this conversation with you, you make me want to think about the heart when you talk about the where was their heart? And you said it, and it was so clever the way you said it. And you do say a lot of clever things, humbly, but Gerard, that's a part of your Jamari Ferrari. You very quick, boop, boop, boop. And then, but literally matters of the heart. Is there a way to connect, evaluate through a consensus mechanism, matters of the heart based on what you've seen? Or is that just ridiculous?
I see the reality is we're already doing that, right?
Okay, all right, break it down, brother. Take your time.
Because look, when you look at all the currencies out there, right, you're looking at them and you're analyzing them. There's some that have different technologies. There are some that are just clones of each other. There's some that have different marketing. There's some that have different purposes. And you're choosing between your head and your heart what you're going to actively engage with, what you're going to spend your mental bandwidth on, expending your time, energy, and resources to support and participate in that space. People are already choosing with their hearts and with their minds. Now, they might be neglecting one or the other in that choice. And what I'm kind of saying is, like saying, are we being intentional about that decision, about what systems we're going to support? Like, are we in this? Are we in Dogecoin because of the money? Or because we believe in our hearts that this is the system that reflects what we want the world to look like tomorrow? Are we supporting, I think there's a project called Clever, because we agree with their fundamentals, because we believe.
But you're going to a different place. I think there's going to be enough people selling scams, and because Satoshi Nakamura, she's not here, she can't sell her scam, so they're going to win. I'm not talking. I'm actually saying using a protocol, a consensus model that actually allows us to determine if these decisions or this data. I'm trying to connect. How would you connect matters of the heart to a system that we could have a consensus to say yay or nay, or some delineation?
I guess what I'm saying is, like, matters of the heart and our mind are all about the actions you take. Like, it's expressed in action. Like people say, love is your commitment. Like, love isn't, oh, I'm in love with you, and the thought of saying it. Love is best demonstrated in your continual actions, your continual choice, day after day, right? That's love. So therefore, me participating in Bitcoin is a show, like I said, like, hey, there's something about Bitcoin that I love, whether it's the raising of the value, or it's the economic freedom, or the pseudo-anonymous aspect of it. There's something about this system, this community, that I love, that I'm patronizing it, like, continually with.
But that could be purely intellectual. That could be purely my brain saying that.
No, yes, but however,
I could actually set them side by side and say there's 3, 5. But is there a way to measure, literally extract it out and say, Cain did this, and this is how much of his heart was in it. Abel did this, and this was how much in his heart in it. I'm like, that is very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you can. That would be lovely if we could see into people's hearts. But I think that the thing that I look at cryptocurrency about saying whether I know your heart or not, based upon what these rules mean to some objective, are people in alignment with that, right? So tithing is meant to be from the heart, and then therefore we say, okay, so you tithe 10% or you tithe 20%, right? Like, I don't know why you're tithing your 20%. I don't know if you're doing it begrudgingly or not. Like, because you're supposed to have a good heart about it. But we set the rule, and you take the action as the step towards that path, and at least to indoctrinate the practice of doing so. So I will never know your heart, but I can design the incentives so that people will operate in a way that's in alignment with what people with the right heart should be doing. So if you have the heart, you should be tithing.
And you wouldn't necessarily need an oracle. You would literally, through whether that consensus mechanism, you would set that out, that you do this amount, that amount, and it'd be fixed and can't be changed or manipulated. And we all would see if it was changed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. No, because I know I always bring up to people like even like church church finances. People always talk about, oh, I don't know what's happening with the money. I said I always feel like put it in a DAO, in a transparent DAO. Everybody see what's happening. Like everybody's voting on you. You can empower your deacons if you want, empower the pastor, empower you want to. But now you have transparency about the flow of money, and that removes that question in everybody's mind about, oh, I'm going to church because of the finances, right? Like, oh no, the finances are clear to everybody. The books are unchained. You can look at it if you want to. This is what's happening, and now we can move on to greater and bigger business. So.
I think that was you got any more like that? That was a little choice nugget. What other down like whatever? What else you got, brother smart contract guy?
No, that's really the stuff I think about. Is like I think about church operations, as I think about my interactions. How do you within a community increase the movement of money, the velocity of money within your community before having it leave. And that's what kind of the time dollar thing. I said, how do you move those resources internally and bring in more?
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. Yeah, no. Well, look, Jamar, I'm not gonna look. We wanted to make sure we closed out the Black Blockchain Summit on a spiritual space. We know that the spiritual space is with our physical and every other space that we're in, but we oftentimes don't acknowledge it, and so just be able to speak it and say it out loud is definitely something and a step in the right direction. I pray. That being said, any last words as we close out this conference? Anything else would you like to add, sir?
Well, I know for me, I am very appreciative to you and the rest of the team that has brought this together, because the Black experience is not a monolithic one, right? Like there's different facets to us, and that's what's been great about this: the many perspectives and facets, the kaleidoscope of the Black experience of the diaspora has been discussed over this day, and that's vital. That's something we need to continue to remember about ourselves, and also grow, because we know that we are our leaders. Like the way the culture has been shaped around the leadership of Black culture, right? So therefore, even in this space, we should be taking the reins and establishing what this world looks like. And I think conferences like this are part of that story, of being that jumping off point. So I'm appreciative of that, and I've been just thankful for the opportunity to even talk about the relationship between this and faith, because that is an important part of our culture, and to miss that conversation, what it means there, is missing out on a core piece of who many of us are. I mean, that dynamic is changing over time, but it still is at this moment.
All so right, no, humbly, we appreciate you, and I personally appreciate your leadership and thoughtfulness. HU, all right. I saw that shirt on. Now I ain't gonna, I sent a little private message. I ain't, I'm enjoying. I'm not speaking tongues right now. I'm just looking at you. I'm just saying, just because we couldn't be in person, Black man. I'm just saying, we could put a little something on it. We could put a little something on it.
I was doing virtual, right?
Look, you show up on the yard with that. We got something for that. Humbly, we know you where you started off at. God dog it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, humbly,
and MBA.
Humbly again. Thank you so much. How can I get in contact with you?
I'm on Twitter, Jamari, JOMARI _ weird thing right now, P. Or you connect with me on Discord. I'm on the Snowball, the Discord all the time. My project on the Avalanche Network. Facebook, LinkedIn.
Oh no, we can't leave. Talk about your project, bro. That's all bad. There's no disrespect, bro. Please, because ain't nobody gonna talk about us. We don't talk about us. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah,
please tell us about the Snowball, Black.
Yeah, no. Oh, so Snowball was launched on the Avalanche Network in March. It was a project that I helped bring to life. It's a decentralized finance tool and DAO that recently reached 100 million in total value locked. We've been making about 100K plus per week in revenue. Basically, we forked the Pickle finance contracts on Ethereum and Saddle Finance, and then we've been building new strategies to increase people's returns on Avalanche. Avalanche is a novel approach to a cryptocurrency network using a DAG, a direct acyclic graph. So that allows you to kind of get more, they have sub-second finality. That means in less than 1 second, transactions are confirmed. It's proof of stake, and they have the Ethereum virtual machine, which is basically what Ethereum runs. It has solidity, which we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. So that means everything that was built on Ethereum can be built in Avalanche. And basically, we were the first auto compounder. We took rewards and then we compounded them into the underlying assets. And that was very needed in the space. So we found a need, we filled it, and we've continued to build to expand decentralized finance. And just been happy to be a part of that. So this is my second startup in the space that I think is doing well. My first was quantum resistant ledger, which I exited was about 100 million TV network valuation. So I'm on my serial entrepreneur tip in this space. I'm loving it, and also working on Finite Games eventually, which is an NFT based gaming system. So I mean, I've been off and on of that, but that'll come out eventually as well. So I love this space, though.
No, man. Look, in the space, gotta love you, brother. Humbly. What do you think about the cost of gas and some of these smart contracts? I know it's not a feature, it's not a flaw, it's a feature. And again, people don't talk about crypto kitties and some of the shenanigans spamming some of these networks, but the fact that we were able to get NFTs out of it, I'll call that a victory. But with the rising value, of these tokens and the use of gas, what are your thoughts on how that will impact smart contracts and even the development of from proof of work to proof of stake? Again, am I a Bitcoin maximalist? I'm probably more maximalist on the success of that project relative to others, but I'm not going to ever, I pray to one God. I don't pray to any technology.
Yeah,
so
right.
what, how much to tool? Anybody start praying to hammers would be probably a problematic person, right? My screwdrivers, everything. I got you, bro. I got you. Screwdriver. Humbly though, but somebody always came up with a new tool. You gotta be kind of tricky too. Like this guy always. You remember that one where the guy was go like this? He got a tool, man. Like, right. Like that's problematic too. So, what are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, no. Yeah, when it comes to gas fees, I mean, there are other networks which are trying to build solutions for more scalability, right? Ethereum's moving to ETH2, which is supposed to be proof of stake. Avalanche is proof of stake. Tendermint has been proof of stake. I think I think the cost part is high. Like the reason I moved to Avalanche is because I didn't want to spend that much money on Ethereum gas anymore. Like there's a lot of potential money making opportunities on Ethereum, but most people are costed out. If you're spending 90, 150 bucks to make a transaction, and you're talking about I only have $5, well, clearly this is no longer a network that is beneficial to everyone. It's become a select money making scheme. Like
stop talking unbanked. Stop them lies. We're here for your bank, man. You hustling all of us. Golly.
Right. So that's the reality. So Avalanche, for example, which I'm only talking about that because I'm on it actively. Like I know that they continue to reduce their transaction fees via their apricot phases, right? So not only are you having fast transactions, but you have cheaper fees. So you can mint NFTs for less than $1 or whatever. So that's like, okay, that'll work. That's reasonable. And then you have other technologies. Polkadot, which came from like Gavin Woods, who was one of the founders of Ethereum, to Cosmos. These are all other networks that are trying to make solutions that mitigate some of those costs. I mean, I think gas fees are real, and they are the necessity to mitigate spam.
Right.
But
they're a feature, but good Jesus Lord.
Right, but I think there's the underlying technology and consensus mechanism that have to be improved so that it's not such that it becomes like the trade-off of those two is it doesn't have to be as high as it is right now, which is why he's just making that change.
Respect. No, thank you. All right, well, Gerard, appreciate you, brother. Always, nothing but love. Continue to do the amazing things you do, man. Please give my regards to your lovely wife and beautiful family, brother. You know, that I hope to make it. Not hope. I pray we make it to the. And I've been dealing with hope and pray. Maybe you can help me out with this. Listen, bro, this brother broke this thing down to me. He said the colonizer enslaver gave the people they enslaved. They took the choices from them and gave them hope instead. I was like, not prayer. They gave them hope instead of, didn't give them self-determination. They look, I'm gonna take everything you got and here's some hope. If somebody say, I hope you eat today, you're gonna be like, man, if somebody say, I hope you eat, you probably cuss them out, man. Everybody, what? You hope I eat?
It's like, I hope you make it to the end of the day.
right. That's a problematic statement, right? I hope.
It is. I mean, people have talked about that. I mean, they said like they took everything and they give them a pie in the sky. Like you get your rewards after death, but while you waiting, I'm going to enjoy the bounty of what's here. And that's not the way it's meant to be. We are expected to enjoy the bounty of the earth. I mean, like this all was created for the benefit of the Most High, and we were given dominion over it to experience and make the most out of it. So we have responsibility for stewardship, but also to experience the beauty of this world. So that's why, I mean, it's important to get out, talk to people, experience nature, experience what man has built. I mean, in interacting with nature. I mean, all these things are vital. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but yeah, I mean, that's what I absolutely.
Humbly, no. Look, I don't want you to get that. Look, I get spooky with you, but humbly, thank you again, Brother Jamar. Appreciate you. Appreciate your project. Again, if they want to get the snowball, what's the snowball?
Beta.snowball.network or snowball.network will get you on the site, and there's a Discord button. To join the Discord, holla at me. I'm always happy to talk and be an asset to others. Because we build better together.
We build better together. And those will be those words. We build better together. Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap it on up. Sister Yvonne, do we have the last slide?
Yes, we do. Alice is going to share it.
All right. Am I on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Why is it showing you on? It's interesting. So I'm on the screen right now.
Yes, you are on the screen.
I'll take it as I got it. All right. Well, again, I just want to thank everybody who came and made this possible. I want to thank our amazing co-founder, co-host of Origin, Brother John Karanja. Want to thank our co-host this year with Afro Bits, Brother Tangai Choto, who was amazing in standing in and making sure that we all have contributed to has been as a success as it should be. We have the 5th year anniversary coming up next year. And as a part of that, we've been working. We saw a recent mention of a sculpture of Satoshi done in Hungary, where they had a faceless person that didn't seem so faceless, looked like a small European young fella. And we're clear that that's probably not the best rendition of Satoshi. And, it's kind of interesting. We talked about faith. We've seen how even the images of faith have been manipulated to show people in ways that may not be historically or contextually correct. So we want to make sure that we, as a Black Blockchain Summit, for the upcoming year of our 5th anniversary, we're going to do we commissioned a artist to do a faceless rendition of Satoshi, and to make sure that when we start talking about the origins of this technology, that we're literally not that one, but we'll have something come up next to let people know what we're going to do and share it. But with that being said, just want to thank everybody who participated, and we'll see you again next year. Thank you. I am because we are.